The purpose of this tutorial is to introduce players to the world of hotkeys. I'm using World of Warcraft as an example, but the concepts covered in this video will apply to any video game you play with a keyboard and mouse. When I first started playing WoW back in 2004, I clicked on spells in my hotbar. I was able to get pretty far in the game doing this. It wasn't until I started dueling and PvP that the limitations of clicking abilities with the mouse in the hotbar became apparent. I don't believe that there is a right or a wrong way to play a video game, especially WoW. It has one of the most diverse player bases I've experienced. I know plenty of players to this day that still get by clicking spells and abilities in their hotbar. They are comfortable doing this, and they approach the game from a much more relaxed or laid-back manner than I do. I freely admit I'm a hardcore competitive player, and that isn't the way the majority of players want to experience the game. However, players that want to improve their response time to become more competitive have consistently requested that I create a hotkey tutorial. I am pleased to announce that I am honoring those requests. This tutorial essentially boils down to improving accuracy and response time. One can only move the mouse cursor around at a maximum speed to ensure accuracy in successfully targeting the desired ability or spell in the hotbar. Hotkeys eliminate this speed limit while increasing accuracy. For those interested in PvP and late in-game content, this increase in accuracy and speed will pay dividends in your next raid, battleground, or both. I have intentionally released the first two videos of the WoW Turt-torial series simultaneously in order for those players who wish to learn and master hotkeys may begin establishing habitual muscle memory immediately upon creating and playing their first characters. However, even if you've played for a long time without hotkeys, it's never too late to begin incorporating the instructions provided here into your gameplay. It will take some time for muscle memory to establish itself, but once it does, your response time to critical gameplay moments will come as a natural reflex. One only needs to put in the time to first configure hotkeys and practice enough with them for this eventuality to become a reality. Before we begin, it's worth noting that your keyboard's hardware can affect how many keys you can press at once without missed inputs. Keyboards generally come in two main types, mechanical and membrane. Mechanical keyboards use individual switches under each key, giving a distinct tactile feel and quicker response. They often support full in-key rollover, meaning every key pressed is registered, no matter how many you press simultaneously. Membrane keyboards use a rubber or silicone dome over a shared circuit sheet. They feel softer or mushier with less precise feedback, but most modern models can register around 6 simultaneous key presses without ghosting. More than enough for gaming. For this tutorial, you'll never need to press more than 5 keys at once, so any reasonably modern keyboard, mechanical or membrane, will work fine. If your keyboard or laptop is over 10 years old, you might encounter limitations, so it's worth keeping that in mind before continuing. Gamers, writers, and IT workers spend countless hours at a keyboard, and while that's great for productivity or fun, it's also a recipe for wrist problems if you're not careful. Growing up, I remember seeing adults wearing wrist braces for carpal tunnel syndrome, and I've always kept that image in mind. Carpal tunnel syndrome happens when the median nerve in your wrist gets compromised, often from repetitive movements like typing. The result? Numbness, tingling, weakness, and pain that can make even basic tasks miserable. The good news? Most of it's preventable. For me, that means using both keyboard and mouse wrist rests, paying close attention to desk height, and keeping my posture aligned, especially since I'm a bigger guy who spends long hours working and gaming. Your setup might be different, so find what works for you. If you've never been taught proper typing posture, take the time to look up a guide or watch a quick tutorial online. A few small adjustments today could save you from a lot of pain later. My goal is for you to enjoy gaming without sacrificing your long-term health. Tactile markers. If you haven't taken a typing class, you may have wondered what those little bumps are over the F and J keys. These are tactile markers to help you ensure that your hands are in the right spots over the keyboard without needing to look down at your hands. Take a look at the keyboard you're in front of right now and notice what they look like on your keyboard. On both my laptop and my desktop keyboard, both the F and J keys have this little raised line towards the bottom of those keys. You'll also notice how no other keys have these tactile markers. Home row. The index finger on your left hand is supposed to rest on the F key, and the index finger on your right hand is supposed to rest on the J key. This is why all of the keys along this row are known as home row. Key assignment by hand. From the home row, the available keys are divided for each hand. This visual illustrates how this is done. The spacebar can be pressed by either thumb and is the only key with a shared assignment. Every vertical column of keys are for your individual fingers, with 2 vertical columns in the middle for each index finger. When gaming, your dominant hand is always on the mouse, so that just leaves the non-dominant hand on the keyboard to press keys. For the purpose of brevity in this tutorial, all following infographics will assume right hand dominance, with the left hand as the non-dominant. Sorry lefties, just kidding. It should be easy to extrapolate the inverse of these infographics. WASD's movement keys. Since the mid-90s, WASDs have been the movement keys for virtually all 3D games, especially first-person shooters. I realize that not everyone has played FPSs, but if you have, these keys will certainly feel natural. A little later in this tutorial, we will cover movement with WASD in World of Warcraft in detail. In all following infographics, WASDs will remain shaded in red because they are reserved for your movement and thus considered movement keys and not hotkeys. Available hotkeys with large hands. If you're like me and have super big hands, you have a few advantages and a few disadvantages. For advantages, you can easily reach the function keys as additional hotkeys. You are also really good at opening jars, and you may even be able to palm a basketball. For disadvantages, us big hand people need help digging out a small screw from a computer case or reaching into a small or narrow place to do something. For the rest of this tutorial, the infographics will assume one has average sized hands, but for those of us that have trouble finding gloves that fit, know that you have a few extra buttons there for hotkeys along that function row. Available hotkeys. These are your standard unmodified hotkey options, which gives us 18 in total. We'll get into modifiers in a minute, but you can easily see what your options are with your hand resting over the WASD movement keys. It shouldn't be much of a stretch at all to easily hit all of the highlighted keys around the WASD area. Hotkey modifiers. A hotkey modifier is a key you can hold down, then press an available hotkey to trigger a different effect. The most common usage of a key modifier is Shift. It's used a few billion times a day every time someone needs to capitalize a letter. The second most common usage would be for keyboard shortcuts, copy, cut, and paste. You easily have access to 2, maybe 3 hotkey modifiers depending on what feels comfortable to you. We have Shift, which is the most common. Control comes in second, and usually Alt comes in third. However, I know plenty of players that prefer to use Alt as a key modifier over Control just because it feels more natural to them. I'm showing you all 3, and it's up to you to determine your preference based on what feels right. Available hotkeys modified with Shift. By using Shift as a hotkey modifier, we go from 18 available hotkeys to 36. All you have to do is hold down Shift and hit the hotkey, then boom, new ability. Available hotkeys modified with Control. Further expanding with key modifiers, when we use Control as the key modifier, we jump up to 54 available hotkeys. Available hotkeys modified with Alt. Finally, the next step would be to use Alt, giving us a grand total of 72 individual actions bound to a hotkey. Therefore, by following this tutorial with its basic scheme, you can easily have access to around 72 hotkeys. Now it's time to set up the game to take advantage of them. Practice typing. A quick side note. Definitely check out play.typeracer.com. It's a fun website that you can practice on to boost your accuracy. The website basically gives you a quote from a book or movie, sometimes song lyrics, and all you have to do is type the words on the screen to get your car to the finish line. The faster and more accurate you type, the faster you get there. By practicing typing a lot, it will help you build muscle memory, which in turn will help you strike your hotkeys. As you can see here, I type about 70 words per minute with some pretty high accuracy. But don't be discouraged when you're starting out if your numbers are low. I started out that way as well, but I was starting out more than 30 years ago. I have a few decades of practice, as you can see. Interface settings. Alright, let's get started. Once you get signed into WoW and you have control of your character, the first thing you want to do is press Escape and click on Interface Options. We're going to enable some things first before we get to binding all of the keys. In Interface Options, under the Controls section, be sure to check the Auto Self-Cast option. This will save you from needing to manually target yourself first before casting a spell or ability on your character. Believe me when I say this will help increase your response time. While still in Interface Options under the Display section, be sure to check Instant Quest Text and Buff Durations if you haven't already. This isn't specifically related to hotkeys, but it will speed up gameplay and provide critical information about buffs on yourself and others. Next, click on the Advanced Option tabs in the top left-hand corner. In the spirit of helping you configure the interface to present helpful information, go ahead and check the box on the right-hand side for Enable Floating Combat Text. In a later video for this series, we will cover some add-ons that will provide you even more on-screen information, but turning this on for beginners is a great start. Finally, under the Action Bars section at the top, check everything but lock action bars. Check Always Show Action Bars, Show Right Action Bar, Show Right Action Bar 2 below it, and put a check next to Show Bottom Left Action Bar and Show Bottom Right Action Bar. Once you've enabled all of that, click the OK button in the bottom right. You will now notice a lot more hotkey spaces available on the screen. You won't need them right away at lower levels, but we are preparing the canvas for you to paint your hotkey masterpiece. Key bindings. The main menu should still be up on your screen. If it is not, all you have to do is press Escape again. Now it's time to click on the Key Bindings button in the middle of the screen. Let's go over some of the basics first. In the top right-hand corner of the window, you will see the option of Character-Specific Key Bindings. If you check this off, you will need to manually go through the key bindings configuration for each different character you create. To save yourself time in the long run, I recommend leaving it unchecked. When you leave this option off and create a new character, you will simply need to drag spells and abilities into the place on the hotbar that has already been configured to use a specific key. Next, we configure the movement keys. We will configure Watts so that the A and D keys are strafe left and strafe right, not turn left and turn right. For turn left, click on the field containing A and click Unbind Key. For turn right, click on the field containing D and click Unbind Key. For strafe left, click on the field containing Q and press the A key. For strafe right, click on the field containing E and press the D key. Be sure to click OK when you're finished. WoW Basics, Strafe Running, and the 180-degree cast line. Now before we go any further, let's take a minute to review how movement in WoW works with this key configuration, how to ensure you are maximizing your mobility, and that you understand when the game considers you are facing your target and when you have your back to a target. This is primarily important for any and all ranged attacks or abilities, even for warriors using things like Intercept. And it is also very important for rogues and druids, as several abilities can only be triggered when you are considered behind your target. Let us start with an extremely simplified view of the 180-degree line. This black dot is considered your player character or your target as viewed from the top down. For the player character, everything above the 180-degree line is considered ahead of you, and everything below the line is considered behind you. The same goes for players and mobs you can target in the game. If your character is ahead of the 180-degree line from the target's top-down perspective, they are considered to be facing you, and they are considered to have their back to you if your character is behind their 180-degree line, again, from the target's top-down perspective. Let me show you how this works with a very simple add-on installed that will draw the 180-degree line. Let's start with the obvious. This rat is directly in front of my character. I will now cast Shadow Bolt. Success! One dead rat. Now, this rat is directly behind my character. I will now attempt to cast Shadow Bolt. It fails, and the error message displays that the target needs to be in front of you. Now let's take it to an extreme. I'm going to line up the rat in front of me at the most extreme angle I can manage while ensuring that target is above the line, and thus the game understands that I am facing the target. Now I cast Shadow Bolt. Notice how the Shadow Bolt appears to project at a virtual 90-degree angle, but that the cast is still successful. Now using the same extreme, let me have the target ever so slightly behind the 180-degree line. I now cast Shadow Bolt. Failure, and in pops the error message that the target needs to be in front of me. Now let's switch gears for a moment and cover why you want to strafe instead of turn. It all boils down to speed. Holding W will move your character forward. Notice how quickly we travel. Holding S will move your character backwards. Notice how we move at a reduced speed. Holding A or D will cause your character to strafe in the left or right direction. Notice how your character moves at the same speed strafing as they do moving forward. Now let me move forward and use the keyboard to turn instead of the mouse. Notice how janky it is to maintain the target above the 180-degree line. Now let me strafe in one direction and use the mouse to turn. See how much smoother it is keeping the target above the line. Now let me put distance between myself and the target using strafe while using the mouse to ensure the target is still above the line. Now let me combine strafing and running forward while using the mouse to ensure the target is above the line. Notice how smooth and easy the movement appears while keeping the target in front of me. If you have already experienced playing first-person shooters, you should be able to pick this up rather quickly. If your background is different, then you will need to spend some time practicing it, but it shouldn't take long before everything clicks. Default keys to unbind and why. Let's take a minute to unbind a few of the default keys and I'll explain along the way. Bring up the key bindings menu again and scroll down to Interface Panel Functions. Click where it says C for the character pane and click the Unbind key. I recommend doing this because it's better to have C and Shift-C available as hotkeys for abilities, knowing you can simply click on the character pane icon in the UI to access the same window. I have my character pane bound to Control-C as I have eventually gotten tired of clicking on the icon for it. Again, there's no right or wrong here. I am merely attempting to free up some of the easiest to strike hotkeys so they can be used for something more important, which is combat, instead of looking at your character pane, which you will only do outside of combat. Click where it says B for toggle backpack and click Unbind key. Again, we're freeing up B for combat. I have my B set to bandage appropriately enough, and I use the default Shift B to open all of my bags at the same time, not just the one backpack in the furthest right bag slot. Next, in the key binding settings, let us scroll up to Action Bar Functions and find where it says Previous Action Bar and Next Action Bar. In the Key To column on the right-hand side, click where you see Shift mouse wheel up and click the Unbind key button. And right below it, click where you see Shift mouse wheel down and again click the Unbind key button. This will prevent you from losing your key bindings simply because you were holding Shift to use hotkeys while scrolling your mouse wheel to zoom the camera in or out. It is very common for new players to get confused by this default keybind because it makes it look like the icons disappear when you aren't paying attention. Here is what holding Shift and scrolling up or down looks like with the default keybind. Notice how all of the icons change to empty and then back while the hotbar number towards the right increases or decreases. Binding your first 24 hotkeys and moving non-combat items to the sidebars. I'm sure you're anxious to start playing, so let's wrap this up and let me walk you through binding keys for 2 full hotbars that will total 24 hotkeys. That will definitely be enough to get you through your first 10 to 20 levels, and will also move non-combat items and abilities to the sidebar where you can click on them at your leisure. From the key binding interface, scroll down to Action Bar Functions. Leave 1 through 5 right where they are. Click 6 and press Q. Click 7 and press E. Click 8 and press F. Click 9 and press G. Click 0 and press Z. Click minus and press X. Click plus and press C. Now scroll down to multi-action bar bindings. Next to bottom left action button 1, click Not Bound, hold Shift and press 1. Next to bottom left action button 2, click Not Bound, hold Shift and press 2. Next to bottom left action button 3, click Not Bound and hold Shift and press, you guessed it, 3. Below that, click Not Bound, hold Shift, press 4. Below that, click Not Bound, hold Shift and press 5. You may have noticed we are mirroring the primary action bar keys with the Shift key modifier. So to continue, below that click Not Bound, hold Shift, press Q. Below that click Not Bound, hold Shift, press E. Below that, click Not Bound. Hold Shift, press F. Below that, click, hold Shift, and press G. Below that, click, hold Shift, and press Z. Below that, click, hold Shift, and press X. Below that, hold Shift, and press C. So now you should have the primary action bar all configured and the one directly on top of it using the same keys in the same order, but they are triggered with Shift as the modifier. This way the bar below is no Shift and the bar above is with Shift. Now that we've gotten all of the hotkeys configured, I suggest moving the food and self buffs out of your configured hotkey area. See how I move demon armor and the food and water over to the right side hotbar. I do this because I use my right side hotbar primarily for non-combat abilities. As a warlock, I would rarely auto-attack anything because I'm a caster, so I simply remove the attack ability from the hotbar altogether. I can still auto-attack by running up to something and right-clicking on it. However, as a casting class, I do use a wand attack. If you are a casting class, open up your spellbook by pressing P. In the General tab, you will see an icon next to the word Shoot. Drag the icon from the spellbook to a place in the hotbar with the key you want to use to trigger your wand ability. You will not get a wand right away, but you will soon get one from a quest or at the very least buy one off the auction house. I also move the undead racial ability Cannibalize over to the non-combat hotbars as it is something I can click on after the target is dead and I am thus out of combat. Now, as you level and gain new abilities, you can drag them from your spellbook into one of these two hotbars and begin building the use of muscle memory for those combat abilities. Do yourself a favor and go ahead and log out of your character now that we've got everything configured. If the game crashes or you lose power, all of the changes you've made may not be saved, so by logging out and logging back in, you are locking in these changes. Tab targeting. Now there's still a truckload of things to cover when it comes to hotkeys and WoW, but we'll cover those in a later video. I want to turn you loose to get you started on your adventure and enjoy the game, but let's cover one more thing before I let you go. Tab targeting. Anything that isn't a critter you can target with tab targeting. A critter is like this rat. A critter is basically anything that doesn't give you experience when it dies. Other critters are things like sheep, squirrels, bugs, etc. Imagine an invisible cone in front of your character. Anything within that cone that isn't a critter will be selected when you press tab, and the first thing that will be targeted is the mob closest to you. If you press tab again, it will target the next furthest thing away from you, and so on. Also notice that you can reverse the targeting order by holding Shift and pressing tab. Now I can cycle through them forwards or backwards based on these rules. This will help improve your response time and increase accuracy, as you can sometimes miss when you click on mobs. Tab targeting is more accurate than clicking. As I leveled up in Turtle WoW, I wrote this tutorial in order to help others. I thought it prudent to show you what the end result of all this will look like. Here is gameplay of me on my priest healing in Strafe. Once you've mastered hotkeys, your gameplay will begin to look something like this. I am using hotkeys to target my fellow party members and hotkeys to heal them. I am also using tab targeting when I need to target any of the mobs in the dungeon and hotkeys to hit them with spells or abilities. Notice how easily I switch between the other party members to toss them a renew or a power word shield, then back to the tank. I can do this a lot quicker than if I was using the mouse to click on them. Go forth and conquer. That's enough to get you started along the right path. Make sure you subscribe to my channel so you are notified when the next video in this series is released. Next video we will cover things like what the global cooldown is and how to maximize your damage output by combining your casting time spells and abilities with the instant cast spells and abilities. Hit this video with a like and post a comment letting me know what you thought of the video. Let me know if there is anything I could explain further or anything you want me to specifically cover in the next video. Also, feel free to stop by the live streams and hang out while I'm writing a script or gathering footage for the next few videos. I'd be happy to see you there. Speaking of next video, we will have some class-specific sections for hunters and warlocks that have pets, for warriors that use stances, and rogues and druids that depend more heavily on positioning than other classes. Many of you have requested that I start streaming on Kick. Good news, I just created a channel over there. Heading over there and giving me a follow will really help support the growth of my channel. I think I'll join the 21st century and create a TikTok account next, so stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting me via Ko-Fi/SupportNexius. I would greatly appreciate the help. A special shout out to two of my supporters. First off, Deathforged, who donated an air fryer because mine broke after getting nearly daily use for about 2.5 years. As you can see, I got a lot of use out of the old one, and I'll start making some cooking with Nexius videos using the new one in the next few days. Another special shout out to Above and Beyond. Thank you for gifting all of those Twitch subs. Thank you for the great suggestions on improving my Twitch channel, and finally, thank you for the donations. I really appreciate it. Last but not least, a huge thank you to all of my supporters on Ko-Fi. Shout out to everyone by name. Let me thank you all again. Deathforge, Flame Mage, Phoebus, Vorbeer, Next Fan for Life, Dadbro, Joel, Ben, Swanty, Random Late Viewer 54, and Above and Beyond. Thank you all, and I'll see you next video.